sisters, my name is Steve. I go by a road name called X-Ray. I am very active in a ministry called Honor Bound. It's a motorcycle ministry that deals with reaching into the motorcycle culture. We deal with a lot of motorcycle enthusiasts, people that like to ride bikes, and some that are outlaws. Do you guys know what motorcycle outlaws are? Some of the outlaw groups are dealing with the opposite side of the culture. They deal with negative influence. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them deal drugs. Some of them deal with violence. Some of them have used what they put on as a vehicle to turn them into something they should not be. So I want to start off by starting off by asking you, who are you? Who do you say you are? Okay, because there may be a different perspective on that. Who does God say you are? Amen. Do you have a job? You're too young to work. Do you have a job? Yes. You're the oldest. What do you do?
I work at a cell phone company.
Cell phone company. Okay, so all right. So if somebody walked up to you, they would think, okay, well, he's a nice man. He's the guy that sold me the cell phones, right? Does anybody else work here? Innocent. He's a nurse. I work in imaging. I do CTs and X-rays and MRIs. Do you work, sir?
Yeah, I do.
What do you do?
Truck driver.
See, perfect. So we're all characterized or known by what we do. Okay. Now, who in here can tell me who God says you are? Who does God say that we are? Anybody? Who does God say that you are?
I'm a child of God.
You are a child of God. You're chosen. That's right. Who else? Anybody else? We're more than conquerors, correct? Right. We're chosen of God. We're made in His image. Maybe not physically, but God put His imprint on us whenever we left the garden, right? We are chosen. We are destined for greatness. We are made a little lower than the angels, right? And that's hard for us to realize when we're here on earth, right? Because I struggle. I struggle on a daily basis. You know what I'm saying? I deal with doctors and surgeons that sometimes can be very impatient. Some of them can be very rude at times. They can be very self-centered. But that doesn't matter, because I am who I say I am. I am who God says I am.
Amen.
Right? So you all have an influence. At your time in your life, it's more important for you to realize who God says you are than even who you think you are. Because who we think we are changes daily. Right? Our emotions make us change. We could watch the World Cup and our team loses and we feel badly, right? Exactly. Or our brother and sister, we could talk down or fight and then we feel bad about ourselves. But then 10 minutes later, we can feel better about ourselves because of something we watch on TV or if our parents, encourage us, or if our brother and sister encouraged us, okay? So because our emotions change, we have to remember who God says we are. Okay, that's one of the reasons why I wear my vest. On the back of my vest, it says "Disciple of Jesus Christ." All right, so it doesn't matter where I go. If I wear this, I have to be held up to a higher standard. When people see me, I've had people follow me through town just to see who I am because Jesus is on me. Okay? Wow. So it's important for us to walk the walk and talk the talk. Right, and as a culture, as humans, and even though we were raised in different cultures, we have certain standards for ourselves. Correct. Yeah. A woman has certain standards. A man has a certain place, and we have to walk those walks to be held upright in society. But also as Christians, as believers, as young brothers and sisters in the Lord, we have a job to do. Right, we have a job to do. I want you guys to go like this. Just get your hand up in the air and just wrote it. Right, you guys have an important mission. You have an important job. That's your kingdom business right here. Is because that circle that you're in, you can put it down. Because you're not on film, so we can't enjoy that. But your circle of influence is more important than hers. Yours is more important than hers. Hers is more important than yours. You know what I'm saying? Because it includes you. The people that you touch at school, at home, even though you may be brothers and sisters, are more important than somebody else. So if she talks bad to you, bless her, right? Pray for her, right? Because and in the end, you're going to be judged for what you have done, right? And what you have done, and your circle, right? So that as we walk the walk and talk the talk, we have to be held accountable, right? And in the motorcycle ministry, my father here, he holds me accountable to a certain standard. He knows who I am. He knows who I want to be. I'm studying to be a pastor. So if I start to sway or veer off or have certain thoughts or feelings that come in, he's there to help me, right? As we should be. Right? And brother Innocent, if this young man is struggling, he should have the confidence to say, "Hey, Brother Innocent, I need help, or I'm struggling." Same thing with you, sister. as well as you. If you can't get a hold of Brother Anderson, you should be able to come together, you know. But don't be wise. The Lord tells us that we have to be wise as serpents, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't get advice for believers from just anybody.
That's right.
You can't call up your phone to your girlfriend and say, hey girl, you know, I'm doing this, and then she's smoking weed or
Right.
drinking or being influenced from TV or superstars. And she's gonna give you bad or good advice. And bad, that's right. So we have to come together and get good advice, strong advice from believers that are walking our walk. Right? Right. Okay. So that's who I am now. God has allowed me to go into some really dark places to reach those that have been pushed away from the church. He's allowed us to go into bars. Of course, in Honor Bound, we don't drink, we don't smoke, we don't do drugs, and we have to be clean and sober for at least a year before we can even be considered to wear the patch. And that's how it is with motorcycle cultures. You have to at least prospect for sometimes a year, sometimes more, before you can even be associated as a brother. To be able to wear the patch, okay? And that's one thing that Honor Bound does. We have a certain standard that allows us to walk freely into these places, into dark places, oppressive places, places that where normally Christians or believers wouldn't be welcome. But because God has put his hand on us, and the people and the cultures know who we're about, because we walk the walk and talk the talk, he's allowed us to go in there. It's hard for, if I go into a bar and I sit next to you, brother, and I come up and I drink a beer with you and I smoke a cigarette with you, and you tell me how you're struggling with alcoholism. Does anybody drink in here? Good. Guard your hearts, young brothers and sisters. Guard your hearts, because society, the world is going to influence you to where you think that you have to be who you are not. Okay. Remember who God says you are. So if I'm sitting at a bar with this young brother and he's telling me how he's struggling, and I try to say, well, it's okay. Jesus is going to save you. He's going to redeem you from the struggles and from your afflictions and from your bondage. But then I smoke with him. What am I under? What bondage am I under? Smoking. Addiction to nicotine, addiction to alcohol. See? So we have to be able to use our testimony and guard that testimony to be able to do what God wants us to do. We've gone into bars, into really dark places where the church has pushed people out to shine the light in those places. We've seen people healed from bondage. We've seen people healed from affliction. I personally, God has used me to heal a young woman from headaches. She'd been having migraines for years. And the Lord nudged me to go and talk to her and pray for her. And then the next day she came to our church. She hadn't been to church in years. But she found us and she came to church and she was able to give her testimony on what God had done. Not what I had done, but what God had done. Okay. So that's briefly who I am. Okay. I grew up in a home. I had both of my parents. Do you guys have both of your parents? Yeah. Mother and father? No, you do not? Okay, that's okay. Sometimes it's a blessing to have two parents instead of one. So take heart. Don't feel bad. Okay. I was born in a two-family home. My father was an alcoholic. My mother, she went to church at a young age, so she knew what God wanted her to do. I grew up in the church, but at the age of 16 or 17, my oldest brother, he died in a car accident. And I idolized him. He was my mentor. He served in the military as a Marine, and I was in high school. I was in junior ROTC, so it's like a mini military school in high school. So for all things that I was struggling to be, I wanted to be like him. So once he died, my world, my bubble, my shelter, my umbrella crumbled, and that manifested itself in drug abuse. And I got initiated into a gang at the age of 16. I started smoking drugs when I was 17, and I sold my first pound of marijuana when I was 18. So using the gift of leadership that my Father in heaven had given me, Satan had sent his demons in to nudge me into a different direction when I was sensitive, whenever I was emotionally broken, to do his bidding instead of what God wanted me to do. Okay, what does God want you to do today? Okay, I just want you to think about that. What does God want you to do? Okay. So at that age, by the time of 18, I was selling marijuana. I was dealing methamphetamine. Do you guys know what those? I'm sure you guys know what meth is, what weed is, what marijuana is, and you know its effects, right? But at that point in time, I didn't care. I was numb. Of course, I was smoking. I was doing drugs. I was drinking. I was that hole in my heart that I had hardened my heart to. I had already hardened my heart to the Lord. And this young man that I idolized, and my brother, he had died. So all that pain and frustration, they left a void in my heart. Okay. Anytime that God made us with a special place in our hearts for Him, in our spirits, right? We're made of body, spirit, and soul. Right? When our bodies die, they're just a shell. Our spirit and our soul goes to heaven, right? Our soul is our intellect, our emotions, right? They are who we are on the inside. But when our body dies, we go to heaven. So that void that I had whenever my older brother had passed away, automatically the demons came attacking me, and I wasn't rooted strong enough in the church to where I couldn't fight them off effectively. So that's when I started dealing drugs and going that route. At the age of 18, my wife had become pregnant at an early age, so just a little bit younger than you, brother. I had my first son. And before he was born, it's crazy looking back in retrospect on what God was doing, because even though I was dealing drugs, I was active in gangs. I would rather I'd rather come and slap you than to come and love you. I'd rather come and check you and take what you are than to love you and see what you're dealing with, right? So even though I was living that life, God was still wooing me. He was still coming closer to me. He's like, Steve, you know, he was still coming to me. Okay, just as easily as I come and touch you, the Lord is there presently in your life. Okay, He's there seeking you and looking for you. Okay, I want to urge you to not be so guarded, because the world wants you to